Did you know your body isn't entirely human? That's what people say, but why? According to some research, it's possible that the blood flowing in our bodies contains genes that come from different beings. With the many studies trying to discover the true origin of humanity, this is one of the wildest, but it also has the strongest evidence. For a long time, some have been saying that we might have come from an ancient civilization called Mu. Some historians say this is where our race began, but what is the Mu civilization? And what evidence has been found to call it the mother of all civilizations? And is it possible that the origin of humans has some extraterrestrial lineage mixed in? But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. This is a big help for us content creators. Thanks. Now let's return to the video. In the 19th century, there were rumors spreading about an idea that seemed to destroy everything historians knew about human history. And this isn't about Atlantis, nor is it about ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. This conversation is about an even older continent, a lost world they called Mu. This is where the name Auguste Le Plongeon comes in, a French archaeologist from the 19th century. He dedicated his entire life to studying the ruined cities of the Maya. He was known for his belief that the civilization of Yucatan was even older than that of Egypt. But everyone was surprised when he suddenly presented an even more radical idea. According to Le Plongeon, there was once a massive continent called Mu, and from there, ancient Egypt began. His basis for this was Mayan texts that spoke of a great civilization that existed before all that we know. This is history. But he said the ocean swallowed it. He believes that the Mayan civilization did not simply emerge on its own. Instead, it is said to be descended from the survivors of the fall of Mu. But the problem is, he doesn't have enough evidence. He also can't say exactly where the continent is located or what really happened to it. That's why historians quickly dismissed his idea. But as the years went by, the legend of Mu was revived by another person, James Churchward. In 1926, a British writer released 3 books that opened the eyes of many: The Lost Continent of Mu, The Children of Mu, and The Sacred Symbols of Mu. He is James Churchward, and in his books he told a story that seemed more believable than a legend. According to him, 50 years before he published these books, he was a soldier in India. There, he met a high priest in the temple who showed him something he would never forget. One day, while they were talking, the priest brought out ancient stone tablets with strange carvings and writings. The language on it is called Nagamaya, an ancient language that only about 2 people in India can understand. These tablets were reportedly made of clay and sunbaked, making them more durable. Due to Churchward's interest in preserving ancient artifacts, he made an agreement with the priest. In exchange for taking care of and storing these tablets, the priest would teach him how to read the long-dead language. The priest accepted this, and this marked the beginning of Churchward's long and difficult journey to understand what was written on the stones. When James Churchward finally understood the contents of the stone tablets, he wrote a shocking revelation in his book. These were said to have come from the place where humans first appeared, Mu. But that's not all. What surprised many even more was the detailed description of a civilization that had long been lost to history. According to his reading, the story supposedly began with the creation of the world of Mu. The contents mention the so-called Nakal, a race that lived and thrived on that continent. Churchward described Mu as a real place that flourished between 50,000 and 12,000 years ago. According to him, Mu was ruled by a black race that was reportedly more advanced than us in many ways. He added that Mu had more than 60 million inhabitants living in 7 large cities, and they even had colonies on different continents. The people of Mu were divided into 10 tribes, but they had a single government and a single religion. Now the big question is, where exactly can Mu be found? According to Churchward, it was in the Pacific Ocean. Its expanse stretched from the Marianas to Easter Island and from Hawaii to Mangaya. It was said to be even larger than the whole of South America. And it wasn't just big. According to him, Mu was a beautiful paradise full of wide rivers, hills, and plains, a land rich in natural resources. Imagine all of this came from clay tablets with a strange language. But as expected, the account of one person is not enough for the whole world to accept such a big claim. That's why many asked if Mu really existed and there were more than 60 million people there, where are they now? Churchward's answer was heavy. They're all gone. He says Mu was suddenly destroyed by earthquakes and volcanic eruptions 12,000 years ago. In the midst of the chaos, the entire continent supposedly fell into a great abyss of fire and was covered by more than 50 million square miles of water. In just one night, what he called the Mother Civilization disappeared. But the more detailed his explanations became, the more doubts arose. If what he's saying is true, where are the tablets where all of this came from? Were they left hidden in India, or was the whole story just made up? And when almost no one believed anymore, new evidence arrived. A mineralogist and archaeologist named William Niven discovered more than 100 stone tablets in San Miguel Amantla, Mexico, in 1921. The carvings on these tablets were strange and indecipherable, except to one person, James Churchward. According to him, Niven's carvings were similar to the language he learned in India, called Nagamaya. If that's the case, is it possible that these tablets were also written by the descendants of Mu? For Churchward, the answer is clear. Yes, and that's not the only evidence he has. According to him, sometimes there are structures underneath, and what was written by these people is clear evidence. These tablets were also written by people, and for Churchward, the clearest evidence is the most famous example, the Moai statues of Easter Island. The giant head statues built by the Rapa Nui people between 1250 and 1500. They are enormous, with some heads 3 times larger than their bodies, and without any feet. The largest one, called Pero, is 10 meters tall and weighs 82 tons. According to tradition, these were built to honor their ancestors. But who exactly are the ancestors of the Rapa Nui? And why is Easter Island so close to the place that Churchward identified as the former location of Mu? In fact, their abilities were very advanced. They used volcanic tuff, a type of stone made from volcanic ash. It was quarried from the crater of Ranararaku. That's where most of the Moai were built. But there's another mystery. How did they move those massive statues from where they were made to different places on the island? According to the oldest stories of the Rapa Nui, the statues themselves walked to their locations. Of course, they couldn't have literally walked, so researchers suggested they were moved differently. They used the method of pushing with ropes or rolling them using logs. Whatever the truth is, it's clear that the Moai are not just simple works of art. These could be traces left by an older civilization. And this again raises the question, could it be that the Rapa Nui are descendants of the ancient Mu? The last theory about how the Moai statues were moved is the one that the fewest people believe in. But this is James Churchward's favorite, the spiritual power. According to some beliefs, the Moai have spiritual power that allows them to move themselves to where they are now. Churchward supports this because, based on the tablets he read, the people of Mu were not ordinary beings like us. But if they weren't ordinary people, who were they? Before we answer that question, let's first take a look at another piece of evidence that adds weight to the belief in Mu, the mystery of the pyramids. How do you explain that massive structures were built in different parts of the world with almost the same design and principles, even though they were constructed thousands of years apart? Many say that the pyramids were created by the Egyptians, but how did the pyramids in Mexico come to be? Teotihuacan and Sagisa are nearly identical despite being built thousands of years apart. And even more surprising, in China, you can find the Shanxi pyramids. They are believed to be older than Egypt's pyramids, yet share the same geometric design. If these ancient civilizations truly had no connection, why did they all build the same type of structure? It likely means that Mu was the bridge connecting them. There are various theories about this. One theory is that the survivors from Mu brought their knowledge to different parts of the world and left their secrets in stone monuments and tablets, like the ones Churchward read. There's another bolder idea that the pyramids are not just tombs or temples, but energy hubs built using advanced technology that we still don't fully understand today. If this is true, the pyramids are... So the question comes back again, were the people of Mu really human? Or were they some other kind of beings? This is where the more chilling part begins. According to Le Plongeon and Churchward, Mu was the first great civilization. All human knowledge, technology, and even spirituality came from here. But if this is even older than Egypt and Mesopotamia, how did they have such an advanced language, knowledge of astronomy, and the ability to build structures that are difficult to replicate even with modern engineering? From here, different theories emerged. The most popular one is that maybe they weren't human. This is where the ancient astronaut hypothesis comes in. According to this, beings from outer space supposedly visited thousands of years ago and interacted with early humans. Many ancient texts seem to support this. Among the Sumerians, there is the story of the Anunnaki, celestial beings who descended from the heavens to create and guide humanity. The Mayan Popol Vuh also mentions sky gods who created humans from nothing. In the Hindu Vedas, there are the Vimanas, flying war chariots of the gods that soar through the skies. If all of these are not just legends, it's possible that Mu was the first base of those beings. This is what those who continued studying the tablets say. The tablets say that the people of Mu were not just advanced. They were said to be led by beings with godlike wisdom, far beyond the knowledge possessed by a primitive society. That's why suspicions grow that Mu might not have been purely human, but rather a hybrid civilization. And if this is true, there's a frightening possibility that the real purpose of the extraterrestrials is to change humanity itself. Whether through interaction or direct contact, they would mix their blood and lineage with the early humans. If in modern times this idea is considered an abomination, perhaps even in ancient times it was already a controversy that led to disaster. Is it possible that because of this, the entire continent of Mu was destroyed in a single night? This became the biggest point of contention. The controversy did not come from Churchward's story, or from the Moai statues, or even from the pyramids. What truly completed the controversy was the sudden disappearance of Mu and all its inhabitants. But then the geologists arrived. According to them, there is no solid evidence that a continent sank in the Pacific Ocean. The floor of this ocean has long been mapped, and there is no trace of a massive landmass that suddenly disappeared. According to the science of plate tectonics, it's not possible for a continent as large as South America to just completely sink without leaving any trace. That's why, for him, the answer is clear. Mu is a legend, but for those who believe, it might be the greatest secret the world has ever kept. James Churchward always cites the so-called Nakal tablets as evidence. The problem is these ancient records that supposedly tell the history of MU, he was the only one who ever saw them. He never showed them to other researchers for examination. That's why no one has proven whether those stones really existed. Because of this, the entire legend of Mu relies on a story without solid evidence. And the objections didn't end there. Linguists also stepped in and insisted, what if Churchward's belief was simply wrong? What if languages and architectures like those in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica developed independently and didn't have a single origin from the Pacific? As of now, there is no strong linguistic or genetic evidence linking them as children of a single mother, Mu. But if Mu isn't real, why do so many cultures have legends about a land that sank into the sea? Could there be a grain of truth in this legend? Some researchers believe that there might be some truth behind the legend. One theory suggests that Mu might not have been a real continent, but rather a misinterpretation of actual events. For example, according to the Indonesian landmass theory, Mu might refer to Sundaland, a vast landmass in Southeast Asia that sank after the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago. That is exactly the same period mentioned by Churchward. Others say that Augustus Le Plongeon simply misunderstood the Mayan texts. It's possible that when he read the word Mu, it didn't refer to a lost continent, but rather to a symbolic land with a different meaning. And if we consider what happened to Mu, Churchward said that it was swallowed by a great catastrophe, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. But what if this story is just a memory of real disasters, like the sinking of Doggerland in Europe or the flooding of Sundaland in Asia? It's possible that legends and real events were simply mixed together and passed down through different generations as a great mystery. If we look back, the so-called tablets that James Churchward claimed to have are a big problem. He was the only one who saw them. He was also the only one who interpreted them, and he never showed them for other scientists to verify. In archaeology, primary evidence like stones, writings, or artifacts is crucial. They can be touched, examined, and compared. For example, the Rosetta Stone was the key to understanding Egyptian hieroglyphics, while the Dead Sea Scrolls changed the study of religious history. If the Naqal tablets exist, they should be as valuable as these. But because they lack second-hand verification, it remains a story without a solid foundation. That's where the linguists come in. They said that if what Churchward claims is true, that all ancient languages came from Mu, then there should be a pattern of shared words or syntax among distant civilizations, like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica. But in actual studies, it turns out that these languages independently developed. For example, the cuneiform of Mesopotamia and the hieroglyphics of Egypt are both early writing systems. However, their structures differ greatly, and there's no evidence of a single origin. Geneticists also examined this beyond language. If it's really true that humans came from a single mother civilization, there should be a genetic bottleneck, or a single origin that can be traced in the Pacific. But in DNA studies, it was found that humans spread out from Africa, moved to different continents, and there were small population migrations. The well-known out-of-Africa theory is the most accepted by science. No evidence has been found of a separate civilization that originated from Mu. But why are there so many legends about continents that were suddenly swallowed by the sea? This is where alternative theories come in. In Europe, there was Doggerland, which once connected Britain and mainland Europe, but it was submerged by the sea after the water level rose, due to melting ice about 12,000 years ago. In Southeast Asia, there was Sandaland, a vast land that is now part of the sea around Indonesia and Malaysia. For some scholars, it's possible that the stories of Mu are just the result of ancient people's memories, who witnessed real floods and the disappearance of vast lands. Furthermore, if we look at the cultures of different ancient peoples, we can notice the archetype of the lost homeland. The Greeks have Atlantis, India has Lemuria, and legends of lost kingdoms also exist in the Pacific and Polynesia. Perhaps all of these are ways for people to explain what they could not understand during that time. The sudden change in climate, the sinking of land, and floods that wiped out entire communities. Now, this doesn't mean that the legend of Mu has no value. In fact, it helped people to ask more questions. Where did humans really begin? Why do different cultures all have stories about a lost motherland? And why are we so fascinated by the idea that there might have been a civilization before us? Maybe this is a reflection of our psychology as humans, always searching for origins, always wondering if we're the only ones or if someone came before us. After we've discussed the doubts and weaknesses of the theory about Mu, we can still look into some possible explanations that are more grounded in real science and history. Because even though mainstream science does not accept the idea of a mother continent in the Pacific, there are real events and evidence that open other doors of possibility. First, megafloods. In different parts of the world, there are geological records of massive floods that happened after the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago. In North America, there's what is called the Missoula floods, where a gigantic lake suddenly gave way and caused a flood that swept away rocks, soil, and water with more force than any river today. In the Mediterranean, there's a theory that the Black Sea was once a vast grassy plain before it was suddenly swallowed by the sea when the Bosporus Strait gave way. These events could be the origin of legends about sunken lands. The second point is the topic of seafaring civilizations. Even without a mythical continent, there's evidence that ancient people were excellent sailors and navigators. Polynesian navigators, thousands of years ago, crossed the Pacific using only the stars, waves, and wind as their guides. This knowledge was highly advanced for a time without compasses or global positioning system. The possibility that their story about a homeland across the sea is actually a memory of earlier migrations is not hard to imagine. Third, there's the issue of sunken structures found in various places. On the coast of Japan, there's what's called the Yonaguni Monument. It's a giant rock formation under the sea with shapes resembling stepped terraces. For some, it's just a natural formation. Some think these could be ruins of an ancient structure submerged by an earthquake or rising sea levels. Even though scientists are not yet certain, this adds to the mystery that there might be earlier communities we have not yet discovered. Fourth are the parallel flood myths in different cultures. Not just one, but almost all ancient civilizations have stories about a great flood that wiped out most of humanity. This appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia and in the Bible's story of Noah's Ark. In India, there's a version of the story where Vishnu saved a king using a giant fish before the flood came. In the native stories of Hawaii and other Pacific islands, the theme of the sea swallowing the land also often appears. The similarities of these stories from distant cultures suggest that there may be some real basis for the legends of continents or towns that disappeared underwater. Fifth, the issue of tectonic and volcanic activities in the Pacific. The Pacific Ocean is called the Ring of Fire because of the many active volcanoes and earthquakes around it. If there were small lands or islands that sank because of strong earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, this could have served as the inspiration for the story of Mu. One example is the collapse of Krakatoa in Indonesia. In 1883, it literally exploded and submerged a large part of the island, claiming thousands of lives and leaving a mark on the global climate. If ancient people also experienced such a tragedy, it's not surprising if it became the legend of a lost continent. Sixth, the psychological angle. Why are legends about mother civilization so appealing? For anthropologists, it's because humans have a natural tendency to look for the ultimate origin story. We want to believe that there is a greater and more noble origin than what we see in the present. This view is also found in beliefs like Plato's Atlantis or Lemuria, once believed to be in the Indian Ocean. The idea that there might have been an earlier civilization more advanced than ours is enticing because it contains both mystery and hope. It's a mystery why they disappeared, and there's hope that a higher knowledge once existed. It's a possibility that once existed,